Thank you very much. So I'm going to tell a couple of stories, first of all. So I'm Misha Glenny. And as happened when I walked into the hall here tonight, somebody asked me, they said, where do you come from? Where were you born? And I said, I was born in Earl's Court. And then they said, yes, but where do you really come from? And thereby hangs the tale, because wherever I went in Eastern Europe, when I was the BBC's Central Europe correspondent and subsequently, people always assumed that I had to come from somewhere in the region because of my first name, Misha. In fact, the truth, I'm afraid, is more prosaic. I'm entirely Anglo-Celtic by origin, and which actually is a very good thing. It's a very good thing because I had a grandfather who in 1896 had the foresight to be born in Newry, County Down. And as a consequence of that, I now have this. An Irish passport. May God bless Ireland, and particularly its passport office. Yeah, entirely Anglo-Celtic. But my father was Michael Glenny. He was a translator of Russian literature, probably the greatest translator of 20th century Russian literature. And he was, of course, called Michael. And when I came out of my mother, apparently the umbilical cord was tied around my neck. And my father actually saved my life at the time, which, if you knew my father, is really a miracle, because he was so cack-handed. How he managed to unwind the umbilical cord, I'd never know. Anyway, so he felt a particular engagement with me and decided to name me after him, and to differentiate, he used, of course, the Russian diminutive Misha. And so that's why I'm called Misha. But everyone thinks that I'm working for this or that agency. It's not true. Anyway, so one of the interesting things about being brought up by my father was that he was steeped in Russian culture. And when we were kids, he would tell us fairy tales. He would tell us Russian fairy tales, above all about the terrifying witch Baba Yaga, who used to fly around in a pestle and mortar and lived in a house which stood on chickens' legs and human skulls with the torches outside. And she was a really terrifying figure, Baba Yaga. And so from a very early age, I started learning about Russian literature and culture. But of course, Russian literature and culture wasn't restricted to what is now the Russian Federation. It had an influence all over the place. It had a huge influence in Ukraine. My father, of course, he did the first translation of Mikhail Bulgakov's The Master and Margarita. Now, Bulgakov came from Kyiv, and he wrote a marvelous novel called The Days of the Turbines about Kyiv in 1918, 1990, and 1920, which was also made into a play called The White Guard. And this was a marvelous introduction to the complexity of Ukraine. And anyone who tries to suggest to you that Ukraine is a sort of black and white story really knows nothing about the country. I mean, what's very interesting, one of the things about Putin's understanding of Ukraine, which I would say is extremely naive and distorted, is he believes that Ukrainian history is merely a sort of adjunct to Russian history, whereas in fact, until the 17th century, Ukraine was largely part of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. And the Polish relationship with Ukraine is extremely important. The Turkish relationship with Ukraine is extremely important. Now, in most of those cases, Ukraine is the subject of imperial avarice and imperial strategies. And what's really interesting about what is happening now is that Ukraine is, for the first time, in a concerted, systematic, and largely successful fashion, asserting its very own identity, which is not hostile to the past empires that controlled it, but a very unique and interesting phenomenon. Because, of course, there are many Russian speakers in Ukraine, Russian speakers who are clearly committed to Ukrainian independence and freedom from outside interference. And I think for me, the most important thing about what is happening at the moment is Putin's big lie, and that is he is going in there to save the Russian speakers from Ukrainian fascism. Leave aside the fact that Zelensky is a Russian-speaking Jew. Let's leave that aside for the moment. And so the whole neo-Nazi theory of Putin runs into some early difficulties there. Let's leave that aside. What about the people of Kharkiv and Mariupol at the moment? What are they? They are majority Russian speakers. And there he is, sending his missiles and his tanks and killing Russian men, women, and children. So please, Mr. Putin, when you are justifying your intervention, do not say that you're going to save the Russians of Ukraine, because you're killing them. That's a very important point, because when you go to Ukraine, you see a marvelous mixture of cultures. And my father identified very early on, he translated another author called Yitzhak Babel, and Babel, of course, came from Odessa. And that's really what I'm going to talk about very briefly this evening, is about Odessa, the port city, which, if you haven't been, it is one of the most fabulous experiences. And if you can, go and stay in the Londonskaya Hotel, where they identify who used to stay in each room. I stayed in Chekhov's room in the vain aspiration of trying to absorb some of the great master's talent. But you can also sleep in Isadora Duncan's room, or indeed Sergei Eisenstein. And of course, Eisenstein filmed Battleship Potemkin in Odessa. I don't know if you remember that famous scene as the Potemkin steps and all that sort of thing. Anyway, Odessa is not just a Russian city, it's not just a Jewish city. In the 19th century, it was a Bulgarian city, it was a Greek city, it was a Romanian city. It is everybody's city, Odessa. And I am praying that Russian guns, the guns of the Russian military, do not go anywhere near Odessa. So, in order to celebrate Odessa and give us some hope, I want us all to sing a song about Odessa. So I'm going to ask whether we can get... yes, here we are. I don't know if you can see that. Okay. So I've transliterated it into Latin script so you can read it, but you have to all sing it. It's a bit difficult here, but I'll help you with it. So the first line is Ech Odessa, ты город мой любимый. That's right. I'm going to sing it so you can sing it with me. Ech, Odessa, ты город мой любимый. Now that's easy. Let's try it one more time. Ech, Odessa, ты город мой любимый. And the next one. Ech, Odessa, ты город мой родимый. Very good. Do it again. Эх, Одесса, объездила весь свет, тебя, Одесса, милее нет. Okay, it's very simple. I just want you to do those last two lines, and then we'll all give it a go, okay, with the accompaniment. Эх, Одесса, объездила весь свет, тебя, Одесса, милее нет. Very, very good. Okay, so I'm going to put the microphone down. I can see you're all there, ready to go. But I didn't tell you, the only other thing that I inherited from my father, apart from an interest in Eastern Europe, was something known as a familial benign essential tremor, And a familial benign essential tremor means that your hands shake all the time. And when you're nervous, they go like the clappers. And I'm nervous, so if my guitar playing, which in any case I haven't really played the guitar for 40 years, if my guitar playing is crap, just ignore it, okay? I'll see if we've got the microphone yet. Have we, because I should hear the guitar a bit more. Oh, that's better. В Одессу поздно вечером приехал пароход. Веселою толпой его встречать пришел народ. Гулять в ночь мы будем и весело спить будем. И все матросы вместе будем петь. Everybody. Эх, Одесса, те город мой любимый. Эх, Одесса, те город мой родимый. Эх, Одесса, объездил я весь свет. Тебя, Одесса, милее нет. Уж скоро я вернусь, не плачь, Марусенька моя, ведь знаешь ты, матросы, жизнь какая суждена. Сегодня повстречаешь, а завтра провожаешь, а все же с нами вместе будем петь. Эх, Одесса, чей город мой любимый. Эх, Одесса, чей город мой родимый. Эх, Одесса, объездила бы свет тебя, Одесса, милее нет. There you go, Odessa. Slava Odessa.